Welcome to Stardust Stereo. I'm Parker McPhinney. I'm your host. Today is the 16th of August, year 2024. Today we're going to discuss the full moon coming up on the 19th of August. That's the day that the Democratic Convention begins, so I'm sure it will be extremely exciting. Let's talk about what is going on with this full moon chart. It's pretty dynamic. The moon will be at 27 degrees Aquarius, 15 minutes arc. The sun is at the polar opposite. And then right smack dab in the middle of those two planets, the midpoint, is Uranus at 27 degrees and 11 minutes arc of Taurus. So we have what we call in astrology a T-square with this full moon of the moon, the sun, and Uranus. And this brings a lot of excitement and a lot of shaking and a lot of outside the box and unexpected moves. It is an exciting time and an interesting time, as the Chinese refer to the period when times are unsettled. And this full moon exasperates that same shake-up feeling. And speaking of shake-up, have you noticed all those earthquakes all over the world that every astrologer that has an ephemeris and a brain has been talking about for months on end? They're happening everywhere. Taiwan was the latest. We've had them in California. Japan had a 7.1, and they signaled an alert for a megaquake. This is definitely megaquake, full moon energy. And yet quakes can happen in many forms, and in an auspicious form too, because when you think about the fact that a quake reshuffles the playing board, the ground that you stand on, your vision, it allows the space for a new view, and we do need new views. So if you live in an earthquake area, and even if you don't, because the quake could suddenly spark some place that normally doesn't get quakes. That's such an unpredictable full moon. But this full moon does fall in Los Angeles's 4th house, 4th, 10th house. There is a strong possibility for LA being hit with a megaquake. It's also a possibility that this quake will manifest out in the Pacific somewhere and nobody will be harmed. So the Earth is talking to us. We're dropping bombs on her and she responds. And so there you go. Now let's talk about other factors of this full moon chart. It's about ideas. It's about breaking the mold. It's about fate being involved when freedom is sought. This particular full moon has outrageous behavior all over it and also miraculous breakthroughs. The moon will sextile Chiron. Chiron is the wounded healer, also the maverick, the pioneering planet, because it's in Aries right now, that wants to forge forward with the new ideas and inventions and ways in which we make our life easier. Now, I did a little research, as I always do with these podcasts, and I looked to see the dates of when Chiron was actually at the degree that this full moon is in. And so people that are born during the Chiron Aquarius period, when it was near 27 degrees Aquarius, will be very much impacted by this full moon, with opportunity, with chance for change, with an emotional, internal opening up to the broader picture. Aquarius rules the brotherhood of man, brothers and sisters that we feel kinship with, regardless if they are blood or not. It is the great gatherer. Aquarius deals with groups and Congress. And it's all about what brings us together as a common denominator. It rules friendships, and we usually seek friendships with people we have things in common with. Only the person that loves pain will seek out the friendship with somebody who has views that are 180 degrees from them, or they like to argue. So that placement of 27 degrees Aquarius, it will sit on the Chiron of people born. So Chiron was in Aquarius at the late degrees during the periods of spring, summer 1959, January, February 1960, also in late August of 1960 to January 19th, 1961. It also returned to Aquarius in those late degrees. I'm only looking at the late degrees. March and December of 2010 and January of 2011. So if you were born during those periods, and if you're not sure where your Chiron is, you can always go to astrolab.com and have a chart run and look and see where your Chiron is. Chiron looks like an old-fashioned key. It's the maverick, it's the shaker, the mover, the energy force that seeks to look outside the box, encounter healing and restitution. All of this deals with Chiron. Chiron wants to heal itself, then teach others how to heal themselves, and it is represented. It is called the wounded healer. And the wounded healer helps others. Direct experience teaches you about the challenges of life. And then when people come along and they've never had a particular experience that's quite grueling or difficult to deal with, if you've gone through it, you can share your advice, how you got through it. That's one of the great tools of Chiron. But Chiron also deals with the magical energy. So this full moon is sitting right smack dab on those dates of the people that I just mentioned who were born when Chiron was at 27 degrees or the later degrees of Aquarius. This will be a very special full moon for them. It will be a lot of letting go. Sometimes with these full moons, we see breakups, and this is absolutely a breakup full moon because Uranus being on the midpoint. No doubt about it. It is a breakup between groups and the individual. Now, in this full moon, Mercury is also opposite the moon. It's conjoined with the sun. It's retrograde. And of course, it's in a square with Uranus. So there's a lot of ideas out there that are floating around that seem a little crazy, or maybe some of these ideas are reaching to the back because Mercury is retrograde. So we're reaching to the past, longing for some time in the past when things were calmer. Were they? I don't know. Things are pretty crazy right now. So even in our times of unrest, some of those periods seem calm compared to right now. So there's a reaching back to seeking times when maybe you were shining more. Maybe you were more centered. Just maybe you were a little bit more peaceful. This is the longing in this full moon. Also, with this full moon, on a mundane level, in America's chart, they need to pay attention to their debt. They are the people that are in charge of who gets our money, which usually is not the American people. So we'll be looking at our debt. I have yet to hear too many candidates talk about the debt, except for third-party runner Robert Kennedy Jr., which he's not getting much airtime, but he is in a third party. There's a lot of great third-party candidates out there. I plan to investigate those third-party candidates because they hold a greater interest for me. I do think outside the box. And we may see this convention for the Democratic Party as one of the last conventions that is focused on just the Republicans beating. Because I do believe by 2028 we are going to have a three-party system. The two-party system's days are numbered. It's an old cannon that needs to be shot out and let go and let new energy come in. And this full moon certainly represents that. Now, also in this full moon, Venus is opposite Saturn. That usually indicates that people are looking at that glass as half empty. Or they're looking at that glass and they're seeing a crack in it and water's leaking out. So this is strictly metaphoric. This is going to be on people's minds. How do I seal up my worth, what has value to me, my love relationship? How do I seal up the cracks in my house? How do I keep the pipes from leaking? All of this is literal and symbolic. We have a very strong full moon that indicates more people are looking at what's not there than what they're looking at what is there. And to offset feeling low from this full moon energy, you do have to train the mind to look at what is there. That Venus in the full moon chart will square Mars, square the vertex, and square Jupiter. This is where the breakups may happen because of a difference in philosophical beliefs and a difference in the pattern that individuals within the couple want to go. Now, if you love listening to the other side and debating and learning, this is a great full moon to learn a lot. You can definitely go over to the other side, gather facts, deepen your understanding, and expand your consciousness, because we live in a very big world. And if everybody thought like we did, it would be boring and we would never have growth. Growth comes from tension. Growth comes from getting uncomfortable, going through that cycle of when things are not comfortable, breaking new ground. That is a necessity in order to grow. Otherwise, you stay in a rut. There will probably be outages with this earthquake, electric outages, internet outages, tech wars. In the board meeting, there'll be one holdout that will not agree, forcing everybody to stay at that meeting longer. I would encourage you to be the original, dynamic, authentic person that you are. And in everything that you do, embrace and ground yourself in your original view, your original creativity. Don't think so much about what everybody else is doing, if this is in a creative capacity. but think about how you would like to break new ground. Go out and meet new friends. Join with explorers. Go out and bird watch. Do things that you've never done before. This is a fabulous full moon. The full moon shedding the light on all the new possibilities and new groups that you can join. And of course, to do that, that means you have to let other activities on the wayside. You have to put them on the back burner to make room for the new. We will see a pivotal possible shift with the ways in which we do support other countries, especially military. There will be a lot of conversations about that. The markets will be wonky. The younger generation is going to be a little bit pissed off because they're realizing how much debt America's leaders are leaving them with. So we see this full moon as a possibility to explore new horizons, the breakaway from groups for some individuals. Some leaders will definitely be jumping ship. And Joe Biden, he is really impacted by this T-square. This, because his sun is at 28 degrees Scorpio, so it creates a grand cross. It's also called a grand square, grand cross. So there's going to be within this cycle of this full moon some shifts with our sitting president. I've said this before. There's a strong possibility that Kamala Harris could become president before this year is over as sitting in for Joe Biden. We'll just have to wait and see. So with all that, get your earthquake kit ready, explore new groups, reevaluate your friendships, take a look at your bank account and make sure money's not leaking out, and try to keep your cool because this is a very explosive full moon. So if something bugs you, walk it out, write it out instead of duking it out. I'm Parker McPhinney. This is Stardust Stereo. Thank you for listening. I'd like to thank my patrons. You know who you are. If you'd like to become a patron, you can do so at patreon.com/ParkerMcP. Many levels to choose from. You get written work plus the podcast before the public. And if you're curious about your own birth chart, I do private readings. You can check out my website, kitchensari.com. That's the word kitchen, and then the word sari, S-A-R-I, like the Indian dress.com. And I want to remind you, you are made of stardust, so go shine.